So this lesson is done pretty much the exact same way as we did the one yesterday for adding integers. Today we're going to be subtracting integers. Again, integers are your numbers from negative infinity to infinity, so negative numbers and positive numbers. Subtracting is a little bit trickier, but just like with adding, we're going to learn 3 different ways to do it, and you'll be able to pick which way that works the best for you. So using counters. For me, this is actually the most difficult, but here's kind of how this would work. So it says use counters. To me, this says that I have -4. So I'm going to start by dragging and dropping -4 counters on there, preferably in a line, but if not, it's not the end of the world. And then it says, and get rid of 2 negatives. So this one's easy enough. I can get rid of 2 of those. And so I'm left with 2 negatives. Type my answer here, -2. That was easy enough. It gets a little trickier up here. So we'll start the same way. I have 3 negatives. So I'm going to grab 3 negative counters on there. 1, 2, 3. But now it says get rid of 3 positives. I don't have any positives on there. So what I'm going to do is drag positives on there so that I have 3 of them. But in order to get rid of these 3 positives, I have to create zeros with them, which means if I drag 3 positives on here, to make them zeros, to get rid of them, which is what the question wants me to do, I'm also going to drag 3 more negatives on there, because again, remember, a negative and a positive make a 0. And now I can get rid of those 3 positives because I was able to create a 0. And I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives. So if I type my answer here, -6. That's a little confusing. Let's try it again down here. This time I start with 1 positive. So there's my 1 positive. It wants me to get rid of 4 negatives. I don't have 4 negatives. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to get 4 negatives on there. But if I want to get rid of these, they need to be paired up to make a 0. So to get rid of these, I also am going to add 4 positives to make those zeros. And now I can get rid of, or I just got rid of, those 4 negatives, leaving me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positive counters. Again, this is not my favorite method, but if that made sense to you, great. I want you to go ahead and try to do number 4 on your own. Let's look at method number 2, which is using a number line. These next 2 methods work better together. So, especially in this class this year, instead of thinking it as negative or as subtracting, we're going to start thinking it as the opposite of a number. So when we see that negative sign, it actually means the opposite of. So here, this says -2 and the opposite of +3. So it says start at -2 and go the opposite direction 3. So I'm going to take one of my arrows. Again, we can always resize these. Start at 2 and go the opposite way 1, 2, 3, and you're going to end up at -5. Okay, let's look at one like number 3. This one says start at 2 and do the opposite of -2. Well, the opposite of -2 is to put +2 on there. So I'm going to take one of my arrows, start at 2, and go +2, the opposite of -2. So my answer here is going to be 4. So hopefully that opposite of makes sense when you're trying to finish the rest of these. And lastly, we have rules we can use. We are going to use rules that are addition. So we're going to turn all of these into addition problems. So here are your options for your addition problems. What this says is -6 and combine it with the opposite of -3. What is the opposite of -3? +3. So this says -6 and combine it with the opposite of -3. So that means you take -6 and you add 3. And I'm going to let you do that math yourself. This one says 8 and add it with the opposite of +11. The opposite of a +11 is a -11. So we take 8 plus 11 negatives. So the reason that I like the rule is because I'm more comfortable using the counters and the line diagram with addition problems. And by being able to turn all of these into addition problems, we can go back and use the counters or the number line in the easier way that we learned yesterday. So I'm going to let you practice the rest of these, and then I'm here for you if you need help.